when we start a new project, I first like to plant some flags around what do we think we understand about our customers so that before we jump into doing any research, we've got some hypothesis around what they want. We don't want to disregard all the things that you've learned over the years about who your customers are, but we also want to take it with a grain of salt and not just assume that's the truth.
Welcome to the Marketing Meeting podcast. This is the last episode of the year and the first published episode of 2026. And I'm meeting one of my good friends, Clay Ostrom. He's the founder of the research and strategy agency Map and Fire, as well as the positioning and messaging app SmokeLadder. Welcome, Clay.
Thank you. Thank you. Always love chatting with you. This is very exciting.
I just checked the past episodes because I know that I hosted you at the very beginning of the podcast, and I thought that it was just like 1 year, not 1 year, but 2 years ago. But it was in 2022 this time.
Wow.
2022 January this time, which is like already a lot, like almost 4 years.
Yeah.
It was the 10th episode, and we talked about brand data. I don't know why I picked that topic at that time.
Probably because I'm a big data nerd, so yeah.
Yeah, and probably you were already, I don't know the exact founding date of SmokeLadder, but you were already doing some things around that, and we decided to talk about brand data.
Yeah. I hadn't started SmokeLadder yet, so this would have been, but it's a topic I've always been thinking about and love doing research and all that. So it makes sense. So this can be kind of an interesting continuation, part 2.
Yeah. We're going to talk about today brand positioning, because when it comes to brand positioning, it's the name that is on top of my mind is always you. But before we do that, I would like to ask 2 questions related to this year and next year, because it's the last episode and the first episode of New Year and so on.
Yeah.
You have been doing your own business for a very long time. It's almost 10 years now.
It was 10 years in the spring. So yeah, 10 and a half now.
Yeah. Is there anything that you learned new this year or you recognize this year, despite the fact that you have built the company a while ago, a decade ago?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do feel like I'm always kind of learning. Every year I sort of think, okay, now I've got it locked in. I've got it all figured out. And then something will happen will make me realize I'm still trying to figure these things out. I don't know exactly what I'm doing all the time. But I think this year, to me, this isn't necessarily a totally new lesson, but it, I think, resonated with me in a deeper way of just the need to really focus on what I'm the best at and what I really want to be working on the most, and trying to cut out some of the other things. And I think previously over the years, I had sort of been looking at it more like expanding and trying to bring in more, trying to do more services and things. And this year in particular, I just recognized, especially around some of the market research work that we do, part of this is also dictated by customers and the market itself saying this is what we need. But just focusing and I guess sort of eating my own dog food a little bit around positioning and saying, like, I need to really narrow what I'm doing and not try to expand. And that's, I think, it's made some things easier for me this year. But again, it's always a work in progress.
Yeah, it's never ending. And when I think about the past year, well, this year still, there's no one answer. I mean, like, it's been, I think, 5 or 6 or 7 learnings or changes. And for me, for example, one of the things is that I started recording time. So, which I was always very proud saying that I don't record time. It's just like whenever needed, I give services to the clients that I work with, which is still the case. But I started monitoring and logging in the time that I'm spending on projects to be able to understand what's in there. And it was like the biggest reflection and observation that I've done. And other than that, I also, same with as positioning for you, is I recognize that my niche and the part that I love the most is brand strategy. And since I'm capable of, or I can do, not capable of, but I can do also some other services like marketing management, fractional CMO, and so on, I was distracting myself with too many services.
Yeah.
Whereas actually the thing that I want to really grow in is brand strategy, which is, I think, very aligned with what you are facing right now.
Yeah.
But I recognized it like a month ago, very obviously.
Nice.
Maybe
Nice.
yours is, you have taken much more steps than I do. And the last learning, I asked you and I'm talking now.
No, this is
I think
great.
I need this coaching session.
No, I want to hear this.
And the last thing I really learned, a friend of mine at the beginning of the year told me, he's a consultant too. He said that it was very at the beginning of the year, and he said like he adopts retainer projects over project basis projects, which means like retainer means you have a monthly client and it pays off over the months, which people think that is one of the best things, because you can see the frequent, the money coming in, and also the projects coming in on a very frequent basis, like on a regular basis. But then he says like, I adopt that project basis is better than a monthly retainer basis. That was his observation. And then now I'm thinking the same, because once it's a retainer, it's just like you cannot control the time. People, if you are really good at time management and saying no to things, it's great. But it's just very hard to limit the time when it's a retainer project, and it feels like I'm working for a company full time rather than giving services part time. And for me, for other people, that might be the different thing. But for me, it was a big recognition of, okay, project basis might be a better option for me rather than retainer basis. So
that's interesting. It's so funny because almost all of my work over the past 10 years has been project based. And I've always felt like I was missing the boat on retainer work and not trying to focus more on that and trying to get the recurring revenue coming in from that. But I've always loved project-based work because I sort of like the idea of coming in, delivering a specific thing, doing it well, and then being able to hand that off to the team and let them run with it. But I don't know, maybe the grass is always greener. Like, if you're doing project, you think you should do retainer. If you're doing retainer, you think you should do project.
Well, I mean, yeah, for the time being, I feel that way. So don't feel bad about.
Okay. So now I know I was secretly right the whole time.
And anyway, for the year ahead, 2026, is there any? I don't like the word predictions, and I feel like I just don't want to read any predictions, emails, and so on. But I'm gonna still ask you, what do you think and assume about the new year? Maybe just one observation instead of prediction.
Yeah, I think one that's been, and this is something that I think has been developing over this year and maybe even a little longer. And this kind of feeds into your renewed focus around brand strategy. But I think this idea of brand becoming, people recognizing how important brand is now, I think it's a mix of things. I think it's the rise of AI. It's the rise of just incredible amounts of competition out there. And all of a sudden, technology advancements and feature sets have become less and less valuable because people can replicate things and they can copy what you're doing. And what's left is sort of this idea of a brand relationship. What specific connection are you building with your audience? And I think that is going to continue to be just more and more valuable going into this new year, as again, new businesses are popping up left and right, and we have to figure out some kind of competitive edge. And I think the brand is going to be the thing, which is, for those of us who love brand, it's always been the thing. But I think it's just getting a new light kind of shined on it in a way. So I don't know if how that resonates with you.
Well, I mean, I think the same. I wonder if in application, I also believe that strategy and strategic thinking and approach to the brand on a long-term basis, rather than only, saving the date, has been always important. And now people are talking that brand will be back and brand matters now and so on. But I'm not sure how agile and fast the companies would be to adapt to this, because it's already late for some. But I mean, in execution, I'm not sure how it will still be important for companies or for brands that are trying to build something. Because we say that it's important and it's important, but in execution, people are so used to thinking about brand as doing social media content,
Right.
and whatever you post and what type of virality you have and so on. I'm not sure if that shift will be so suddenly, when it's 1st of January, people are, looking, people are trying to book our time.
Yeah, I know. I think it's going to come. January 1st is going to come, and people are going to still say, "Bring me the leads. I want the leads now." Like just do the marketing and like the ads, and forget about the brand stuff. But in the long run, I think we know that brand is, you've got to be investing in it all the time. You've got to be thinking long term and building again those relationships, because I just think more and more it's getting harder and harder to tell different companies apart, because of the copying and the quick to bring up new features and functionality and stuff. So anyway, I think that hopefully hopefully some executives are listening and saying like, okay, fine, I'll invest some money in brand, and we'll make that a goal this year.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why brand positioning is central to your work. Since the new year, we feel that as of 1st of January, brand positioning and brand strategy will be big. I'd like to walk through step by step from understanding a brand's current position to making that position work on a day-to-day basis and serve the short term as well. So before you start any project, is there what's the first thing you try to understand? Do you jump into one thing, or is there you just start to collect some context about the work first?
I think for me, the first place I always want to start with every project is getting a really deep understanding of the customer and what their needs are. I think hopefully that feels obvious to most people, but I think sometimes we jump ahead to thinking about our product. We think about our service. We think about the things that we're doing and how to almost retrofit that to an audience. And it's so critical, I think, especially early on, especially if you're starting a positioning project, to really get a deep understanding of not just demographically who customers are and all those things, but fundamentally, what are those needs? What are those behaviors that we're trying to tap into? I know that we've talked about jobs to be done. I'm a big jobs to be done advocate and nerd. I still think that's one of the best frameworks to use to help get under the hood of how people think and behave with certain things. And maybe the most important thing is that it does create a really healthy separation between what they need and what you provide. It gives you a chance to just look at what they need without thinking about any solutions, without thinking about your products or what you're trying to push on people. It's just about what they need and what they're trying to solve. And I just think to me, that's the mindset that you need to start at always, no matter how long you've been in your business.
Is there a method that you follow to understand the customer? Because there are so many methods that people follow. Some of them are qualitative, some of them quantitative. What's the method that you follow?
Well, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with the research side of things. When we start a new project, I first like to do kind of like a brain dump with the team to plant some flags around what do we think we understand about our customers, what are their what are the things they value most in your solution? What are the things that motivate them, drive them? So that before we jump into doing any research, we've got kind of our sort of, again, we're planting a flag. We've got some hypothesis around what we think is the truth about what they want, and then we can use the research to validate or invalidate some of those assumptions. And so to me, it goes very much hand in hand. It's about, because teams have a certain amount of knowledge. We don't want to disregard all the things that you've learned over years about who your customers are. But we also want to take it with a grain of salt and not just assume that that's the truth or any of that stuff is accurate. So then we move into the research to, again, actually go out and talk to people, hear in their own words what do they think and what do they want. So I don't know if I totally answered your question, but
no, it's exactly what I wanted to hear. So do you also do one-on-one interviews with some of the customers? That's what you follow?
We do. So we do quantitative and qualitative. We do surveys. Often we do surveys of the general market. So we're kind of looking at people who are outside your bubble, people who don't know your brand already, so that we can kind of hear like fresh perspectives of what do the people who we're trying to reach think, even if they haven't, they've never heard of us, they don't know what we do specifically, but what are those needs? Because that market is always much bigger than the market of people who already know your brand. We're essentially trying to expand out and trying to reach more people. So we need to understand that. But then we also do one-on-one interviews to get the qualitative side. And then we can really hear their words. We can hear the language they use. We can see the emotion. We can see the things that stress them out and all the stuff that you can't quite get at with the quantitative side.
Do the clients that you work with, do they already provide the segmentation or like the customer segments or audiences to you, or a part of the work that you do, it already includes that?
They almost always have some idea of some segments that are working, but a lot of the times they're bringing us in to test out a new segment or again, validate which of the segments they're looking at are most maybe profitable or most beneficial to their growth. So when we do something like a market survey, we'll intentionally look at a wider scope, and then we can segment the data and compare and contrast this group versus this group and which one aligns the best with what we're trying to do and that kind of thing.
Because usually in my experience, what I recognize is usually the customer that comes out of that work is not the customer that the company is thinking that they want to target. So they have a target in mind. They say that, okay, this is our ideal customer, or this is the people that we want to reach.
Yeah.
Whereas at the end of the project, it's usually either a slight variation of that or completely the opposite of that, which is like a big opening after the work. Do you feel the same? Yeah.
Well, I'll answer that, but I'm curious with what you've seen. What do you think contributes to that? Because you would think, in theory, that just doing business and seeing the money coming in and who it's coming in from, that would give you a clearer sense of who the right fit is in theory. But what have you seen with that where you feel like there's some kind of misalignment?
I think the misalignment comes from the sales thinking approach, because usually people think that, okay, this is the biggest sale opportunity and these are the clients that already buy from us. And we have the upside potential of this much of revenues from this segment and so on. So that's why we should really make sure that we should push with this segment. Although usually they have like a big sales opportunity target customer, but the founder always have an ideal other customer that, like, in the ideal work, I would like to also sell to these people. And there's always the reality is the potential is there. So we should make sure that we target both. That's
Right.
that's usually,
Yeah.
for example, for my business. I started at the beginning, I was giving social media services as well, like social media management, because it was very early in the company and so on. So then
Mhm.
people were asking for, can you manage our social media with your teams? Like
Yeah.
build the team and manage the social media. And I did that. And that's the sale opportunity. It's just like I explained it.
Yeah.
And there's like money there and there's like potential growth there to become
Mhm.
like a good social media agency.
Mhm.
But I don't want to do that. and and it's either that I really cut the ties with social media management and focus on where I want to grow the most at. I think
Mhm.
that's the same type of dilemma I see at so many clients, that they
Yeah.
cannot cut the ties between the target for marketing and brand versus the huge sale opportunity and funnel that's driving it.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the hardest part to decide.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've definitely seen that too. There's these times where you get sort of these golden handcuffs of, well, we've got this money coming in around a particular element of what we do, whether that's
Mhm.
service or whatever. But and it can be really hard to break free of that because you're afraid of losing out on the revenue that you can get from that. But yeah, I think that's interesting. So it sounds like it's a mix of um, maybe the internal team or founders sort of shiny object, or kind of you have aspirations to go towards something, but then there's the pull of what's currently coming in the door and what do people say that they want. And it's interesting that is always there's always that push and pull with that. You would think that the market would win, that that what you're hearing from your customers, if they say we want this, that would sort of win out a lot of times. But like you said, for your case, well, I don't want to do that. This isn't what I want to be doing as a business. We actually want to be doing something else. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of intersection of strategic inputs that you have to think about.
For the when you are after you done the consumer phase, customer phase, like
Mm-hmm.
understanding a customer and segmenting it out and so on. So you would look to the competition and mapping the alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, do you go only with the direct competition, or how do you select, for example, indirect competition, and which ones to map out really?
Yeah, yeah, that's another reason why I love jobs to be done, because it is agnostic to a solution. It's really about absorbing or embracing the idea that if somebody needs something bad enough and they want to accomplish something, they will find a way to do it. And it's not necessarily going to be the solution that fits perfectly in your little crafted bucket of like, here's the perfect solution for the thing you need. They don't care about that so much as just, can I get the thing done that I want to do? So this creates, like you said, these indirect competitors, in addition to the direct competitors that you're thinking about. So it's tricky. I think it depends on the situation, because we always want to look at both. And there are times where an indirect competitor is your biggest challenge. That's the thing. Like, that could be the status quo that you're actually trying to pull people away from. And other times there's a clear direct competitor that you have to deal with. So yeah, long story short, we always look at both, and then
Mhm.
it's just sort of assessing which one is the biggest challenge, which one is the thing that our particular customers are defaulting to the most often, and then
Mhm.
how do we create the clear separation from that, from a positioning perspective.
For the jobs to be done,
Mhm.
so it's just like there's a customer A, there's a jobs to be done, and the brand, supplies that jobs to be done and provides
Mhm.
that. Um, how many, like, how many? Is there like a sweet spot of like there are three jobs to be done? Should that we should define, or is it just like one, or is there like a sweet spot on that?
Yeah. It's always a little bit of a tough question because I think it depends on the maturity of the brand and the business. I think early on, most brands will start off, there might be one or two core jobs or job stories that we talk about that you're really trying to focus on. And for the most part, we're generally trying to rein people in and say, let's look at less. Let's try to focus in on the most important things, the things that are either like the most urgent, most frequent. Those are the jobs that are the most easy to tap into. But obviously, as brands grow and they have more offerings, they start to deal with different segments of customers. There's naturally going to be different jobs that are associated with each of those different pieces. So it kind of depends on kind of where the brand is and how mature it is and how much they've grown. But in general, we are trying to get people to narrow, like I said at the very beginning, even for myself, just trying to focus on fewer things as opposed to more, as much as we can.
Sometimes it's getting confused between the features of a product or a brand versus the jobs to be done. Are they different than each other for you? How do you differentiate them?
Yeah, I guess they're certainly connected, right? Because ultimately the job to be done is the thing that's fueling what our product or services are delivering back to them to help solve those things. But it's not necessarily a true one for one. I think there could be a core job that we would define for a customer segment. And then off of that, there might be a handful of features that the product delivers that help address the different aspects of that. And again, I'm using different terminology here. Sometimes we talk about just a job to be done, but we also talk about a job story, which is the way we define it. There's sort of a circumstance, an initial need. There's different motivations connected with that thing you're trying to solve. And then there are different outcomes that you're trying to ultimately get to around that job. So if we map it that way, again, there might be 3 or 4 different features of your offering that map back to that one particular job to be done, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense. For example, like I was just thinking with an example in mind. For example, I mentioned to you that this year was the year that I started logging in hours. So
Yeah.
there's an app that I use for that. It's a very simple app. It's called Harvest, and
Oh, that's what I use too.
okay. I mean, but like, so my job to be done is I want to record time, and I just want to observe it. I just want a summary of how much time that I spent. So my job to be done is record time, right? And what would be the job to be done story? Would there be any story on that?
Yeah. So I think if we started with that as sort of the core, so the circumstance would be maybe it's I want to record my time, or maybe it's something more like I want to better understand where my time is being spent every week. And so off of that, there's different motivations. I want to make sure I'm charging the right amount of money to our clients because I know how much time I'm spending on them. I want to make sure I'm servicing the right clients and that I'm aligned there. And also, I want to figure out if I need to grow my team because I'm spending way too many hours on these projects and I need help in these areas. And so Harvest is kind of delivering back features around that. They give you reporting on your hours. They help you break down the different tasks that you're spending time on. It's not just obviously like I spent 50 hours on this project, but I spent 10 hours copywriting, 10 hours on strategy, 5 hours on project management, and all these different buckets. So as you can kind of see how it branches out, it sort of starts with a core idea of I want to track my time. I want to better understand where I spend my time. But then it sort of, stretches out into these other different areas that we're ultimately delivering value on.
I think the most important thing here is that, okay, so job is to record the time, but
Mhm.
behind that there's another bigger motivation, because there is a reason, as you said. Actually, the jobs to be done is to make sure this person that I am, pricing my time and my projects correctly. Probably
Mhm.
jobs to be done is that, not the like the very level, minimum level of very mechanical thing and physical thing.
But
Um,
that's just to hit on that for a second. That's an interesting point because I think there are certain aspects of jobs to be done where there are certain very functional things where those might be the things that kind of get your foot in the door around a certain problem. Like, I just want to track my time. I want to understand my time. But then there are these bigger aspirational pieces around it that you might not even fully realize in the moment. But there are these things like, again, I want to make sure my business is going in the right direction, and I want to feel more confident about the services we provide. And so that's the thing that's always interesting to me with that work, is peeling back those layers and saying, okay, well, we know you want to track your time, but maybe there's some more emotional things under the hood that we could kind of figure out. And again, that's where we use the research and all that stuff to help figure that stuff out.
and I think those things can help improve product innovation and so on. I mean, it's just like, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, a time recording app can easily be duplicated if you don't offer more features or new innovation to the client.
Yep. Yeah.
After the customer and competition, and you figured out jobs to be done, what would be the next step in the project timeline?
Yeah. The competitive analysis is a big part, and then the third part after that, the way we structure it is, then we're really digging into your offering for the first
Mhm,
time.
mhm,
And it's kind of interesting to think about that because we didn't start with your offering. We started with, who are your customers? What do they need? What does the competitive landscape look like? Where are the different things that they might consider? And then finally, we start to talk about your actual offering
yeah.
and what are the features of that and how does it align back to the things that your customers say that they need and that they want. So that's sort of to me, that's like the three circles of positioning that
Mhm,
intersect. It's customers, competition, and offering. And
mhm,
so the offering, again, the way we do it is the last of those three that we actually look at. And
mhm,
then we can kind of pull it apart and say, okay, some of the things you're doing fit really well with what your
mhm,
customers say they need.
mhm,
And then there's a bunch of other stuff that you do that's honestly, it's either table stakes or it's not even that important. And it certainly doesn't need to be a core part of what you talk about. It doesn't have to be a core part of your positioning.
mhm,
Um, and that's really what we're trying to get at with all of this stuff, is not just understanding all of it and understanding the mapping, but understanding what are those few points that are the most important, the most memorable for
mhm,
customers, that really, really stand out, because that's what we have to build around from a positioning perspective. We can't talk about everything. We can't message around everything. We have to pick the best of the best, the most important and critical things to talk
mhm.
about.
Do you, when you are making the pick, does it have to be really distinctive and different from all the others in the market, or all the offering would make it already unique and distinctive? I don't know, because everyone is trying to find a unique edge.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, this goes back to our point about how much competition there is, and it's it's becoming increasingly difficult to find those pockets of available space. And
Mhm,
this is why I think going through a positioning process is so important, because it's very easy to default to some things that might be top of mind. So,
mhm,
like using the harvest example for time tracking,
mhm,
it might be really easy just to say, "Well, we're really a convenient tool. We make it really easy to track your time,"
mhm,
and that might sound appealing. That might sound like, "Well, this is what our customers say they want. They want something that's easy." Um, But it turns out that three other competitors in the space also are building messages around being super easy and being the simplest way to track your time. So that's obviously why we look at the competitive landscape, and we're trying to find those gaps. We're trying to find the areas where you do something extremely well and you've got some separation between what you do and what the competitors do. And it's that combination that we're really trying to build around. But to answer your question, is every product going to ultimately be unique? No. But can you find two or three things that in combination can help you stand out and create something that you can own in the space? I think so. I think generally speaking, we can at least find the most optimized thing to build around. Is it always going to be 100% unique? No, but with some work, we can find something usually that's it can at least help you stand out.
Yeah. And, thinking about harvest, since I'm just going to wrap up the harvest topic now, but like thinking about harvest, for example, I'm sure that if I dig better, I will find a way to do the same in Apple, because they also provide you screen time. Okay, how much time did you spend, and so on. It's just like probably like a feature add to that screen time thing. But I would still want to keep the app as it is, because it's very simple. It's easy to use. It's just like it sends me reminders. And it's just that I don't want any more feature right now. Maybe if they offer something new, I might get tempted. But I think that's an interesting thing. Always, everyone is trying to find something new and their niche. Sometimes it's just the same thing, but you do it better than the others.
And that is a piece of it. It isn't just do we do X, Y, and Z, but do we do it better in some way than maybe what some of the other competitors might do it. So again, there's a lot to unpack there, but
so once we found our offering, what would be the next step? I mean, is it already that we can say we know our brand positioning, or is there any more work to be done after that?
The only other step really for us, at least, that we look at is we now want to bring all these pieces together and look at it all holistically or collectively and figure out, like I said, what ultimately is the part of this or the pieces of this that we really want to focus on and elevate. And that's the next transition that we go into is with messaging. And this is kind of where we create that bridge where we say, okay, looked at the customers, competition, offering. We've now identified these few points that are where we think we can truly stand out. What are those benefits for customers? And then how does that create a bridge into messaging so that we can now start to talk about this in a clear way so that hopefully it resonates. Hopefully all the work we did actually resonates with customers. But that is, I would say, like from a pure positioning perspective, that is sort of the end of that process. It's just now bubbling up the most critical parts of that so that we can communicate it through messaging, through graphics, through all the other stuff that we need to use.
Do you help the clients to work on the messaging, or do you provide that as a service, or do you just create a brief for the copywriter, for the graphic designer, or so on? How does that work?
We almost always do at least an initial pass on messaging, and we will get into at least the beginning stages of copywriting. So there's sort of that key distinction, right, between key messaging, so essentially writing down the strategic version of your messaging, and then there's the actual copy that would appear on your website or in your ads or social, etc. And we focus mostly on the key messaging, and then we'll start to do some ideation around actual copy. So we want to give them at least a small bank of ideas of things that could start to appear like as the headline on your website. But to your point, I mean, usually we're handing off to a marketing team, and they may have a copywriter internally, or they may, but we at least want to like start to bridge between the positioning and the message, because it's very easy for things to get lost from the positioning step into the messaging step, because then you start thinking like, oh, I really like this creative idea of, we want to say this, this fun thing about our brand, and it's like, well, cool, that's fun, but it doesn't actually connect back to the core positioning of what we're trying to, put in front of people. So I don't know, do you see that kind of separation sometimes?
I think it's like, because whenever on the strategy work that I do, for example, people confuse things that are for internal purposes and that are customer facing. So
Yeah.
the things, because for internal purposes, I also spent enough time to focus on words. And for example, if you say distinctive or unique, which one would you use and which one would fit better for us? I mean, this, those are really same words,
Yeah.
but you need to spend time to really find the right one for your company. And while I'm doing that, I recognize that they think that it's the customer facing copy. And it's always important to let them know this is an internal message, and it's important that we understand and digest this. But there is a copywriter who might come up with a totally different thing, but it's actually going to say the same thing, either uniqueness or distinctiveness, something else. Maybe it's going to say, the copywriter will say standout or something like that.
Right.
So I think that's why I don't usually come up with like the final copy myself, but at least give an idea of this is how it should kind of look like. Probably very similar to what you do, some examples.
Yeah.
But I try not to push the teams to use that exact examples that comes out from the strategy work.
Yeah. I've seen that too. And we do try to be very explicit to say, this particular statement that we wrote, this is internal only. This is only for us to strategically understand what we're trying to get at. This is not copy. This is not what you would ever put in front of a customer. And I agree. Sometimes if you don't do that kind of work all the time, it's very easy to get gray and sort of not be clear about like what is a internal statement and what is a customer facing statement. It's easy to get mixed up with that.
Do you do mission vision as a part of the positioning work?
We used to do a lot more of that, and I used to make it more of a central point of the work that we did. If we were doing, and still if we are doing a full cohesive brand strategy, we absolutely will at least do an initial pass on, I will say, mission statement always, sometimes vision statement, and sometimes purpose statement. And I'm sure you've dealt with this many times, but these different statements just get turned into a blender, and people, again, there's a lot of nuance around why each of these different statements exist. And you could look at a lot of brands and sometimes they'll include them on their about page, and you'll be like, what are you even talking about? Like, or they'll have both a vision statement and a mission statement, but they kind of sound almost the same. And so if you don't have a very clear point of view about what each of these things is intended for, it's almost not worth doing it, I think, because they just get all muddled up. But so I do enjoy doing some of that work, but I would say we're doing it less and less as I'm focusing more on just the core positioning and messaging, and a little less on the cohesive full brand strategy work.
Yeah.
What about you? Are you still digging into all that stuff?
I mean, like, because even like as a strategist myself, I have to remind myself about mission, vision. What was it? Which one was long term? Which one was the purpose?
I know.
So that's why I'm still sometimes very struggling a lot about, okay, which one should I use in the projects? But I try to put it in a way that what's our long-term goal, not today, but what do we want to achieve in the very long term, and what do we want to do in the first year, and what's our promise to the customer? I think the promise to the customer is strong one. Because, for example, for Harvest that we have been talking is not a promoted podcast, though.
This podcast is sponsored by Harvest.
Yeah, I would assume that their promise to me, at least, as a Aslan, is to make sure that they provide proper cloud services so that they can log my data properly, and then my data is not lost, and I can log in my data very easily. That's their promise to me, actually. So to answer your question, it's always like a dilemma when I enter a project. It's like, okay, shall I start with mission vision or anyway?
Yeah, I know. We used to do so much of that, and also core values is another big piece of that. We would often help define core values, and I still do that work sometimes, but I just I found over time that some clients, some brands really embrace it. If they really are eager to work on it and they really see the value in it, I think it's worth it, because I think you can get a lot out of it. But the companies or the brands that are just trying to check a box and say, oh, we did core values, oh, we did a mission statement, it's almost not worth the effort, because if you're not going to really buy into it and contribute to it and own it, then it becomes the poster on the wall that everybody walks by and never reads and doesn't care about.
Also, usually, oftentimes, the core values are the core values of the founders, not the company. It's just like the personal core values. That's what I see a lot as a mistake, also. So going forward, for the companies, what are some listening habits or research tools even a small team should keep in mind to monitor positioning work? Because you do it and then done, you don't need to do it. It's not like you don't need to do it for forever anymore, I guess, right?
Yeah, my feeling is that it's something you always, because it is always evolving. So I think you do need to be checking in on it. My personal recommendation is once a quarter, at least, you should be checking in on it and making sure. Just because there's both internal and external factors that could impact it. Even if you feel like nothing has changed about your company, the market has certainly probably changed. Some new product has popped up, some competitor, or maybe there's a new customer need that needs to be factored in some way. So I just think it doesn't mean that you're changing your positioning every quarter, but you're at least checking in on it, and you're just making sure we're still aligned. This is still good. This is what we want to be saying. But in terms of validating it and making sure that it's working and that it's doing its job, I think there's a few things. I think certainly continuing to talk to customers. If you have any sort of sales component, what do those conversations look like? Are you bringing in the right people? Are you bringing in the people who fit your positioning, or are you attracting the wrong type of people? And are they coming in for the right reasons? Are they showing up on your doorstep already understanding what you do and why they've come? Or are they asking for stuff you don't do and asking for things that are way beyond the scope of your company? And the same on just like the customer side of things. What kind of feedback are you getting from people? So I think all of those are good. And then things like social listening, going out to, depending on the size of your company, maybe there's Reddit conversations happening about your brand that you can listen to and kind of see what's the conversation that people are having about it. Like, what are the words that they use when they talk about us? And all of these things, you're really just trying to figure out, like, are they repeating back the things that we're putting out there? Or are they saying something else about us? Because if they're saying something totally different than what you're putting out there, then there's a disconnect, obviously, around your positioning. But I don't know. What would you say? Is there anything else you would?
Well, I think especially for B2B SaaS, I think it's really important to have that quarterly checkpoints because it's very fast. But for a consumer brand who's just producing, for example, retail, it's also like 3-month basis. Like some of the retail companies, they are working on 3-month seasons, like
Yep.
quarterly. But I'm not sure if they would need to check it on a quarterly basis. But I think that would be a very ideal scenario to check it on a quarterly basis, because every big company actually has a quarter review.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get this as a habit, as a pattern in the company, even if you are small, I think the sooner the better in that case.
Yeah.
So I have another question for quarterly reviews. When is our next quarterly coffee meetup, and where? So that
That's
we
a good
close the
question.
conversation like that.
Well, obviously, if you're in the Los Angeles area, it'll be here. I think that's where we've done all of our meetups. I've been lucky enough
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you've been nice enough to come visit me here, or at
Yeah, I
least
mean,
have a stop off. Yeah, in your work.
I would love to do it in Los Angeles rather than doing it in New York.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have you in New York as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like we said, I will have to. I will have to make that happen at some point for sure. Maybe in the summer. I don't know. New York winter sounds a
Yeah.
little chilly, but
Agree.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Clay, as always. I don't know what's this episode number is, because I stopped calculating the
Yeah,
numbers of the episodes.
yeah,
But it's good to have you back after 4 years.
yeah.
And I hope to learn from you more in the new year about positioning, about strategic work, and we'll look
Oh,
forward for your new videos also.
oh, thank you. Well, the feeling is very mutual. I love all of our discussions. I always learn something new whenever we chat, and it's just great. I'm glad that we've gotten to do this for multiple years, and we'll definitely do it for at least 4 more, maybe 10 more.
Years.
Yeah.
Agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you.